Okay, it really doesn't make sense for me to try to wait till I'm all made up and looking cute to post these things because these thoughts come and there's so many thoughts. So rather than give you all a polished thing, me and Layla just gonna tell what we gotta tell, right, baby? Right? Yeah. Yeah, we just gonna tell what we. So I'm thinking. The hurricane, devastation, absolute devastation. There's nothing in my blizzard-raised mind, growing up in the Midwest, could ever conceive to imagine this level of devastation. Couldn't conceive it. And the pictures and the videos are breathtaking. But I started thinking, you know, for it's worse that ever hit Florida. It's worse than ever hit American soil, really. We have never, this was, they're saying is on a scale worse than Katrina, Irma, like many of them combined. Sanibel Island, they say, is completely wiped out. Fort Myers, virtually wrapped. Pictures of boats on top of houses. It's stunning. And I thank God. I thank God for the people who were spared. And I thank God and I pray for the ones who, and the families, those who weren't, and even those who made it but lost like almost everything, your house, your car, your business. I mean, everything is gone. It's amazing. It's unfathomable. But I couldn't help but think, okay, so like if I was like some kind of a tyrannical leader and a key person in a tyrannical agenda, and I had a opponent, if I had one of my subordinates wouldn't line up under my agenda and wouldn't play ball with my agenda, let's say a governor, and was calling me out on my tyranny, and furthermore thinking about taking my job and running for president and running, wouldn't the best way to like shut him up be to like devastate his state with like technology that's right at my disposal, like HAARP, the HAARP, not AARP, but the HAARP program, which actually has the capacity to manipulate weather patterns and direct natural disasters. You know, weather control, oh my God, yeah. I was watching an old movie, Our Man Flint. Remember Our Man Flint with James Coburn? I always loved James Coburn because he looked exactly like my grandfather. My grandfather looked exactly like James Coburn, whichever one, you know, who's first, chicken or the egg, but my grandfather looked just like James Coburn, so I always loved James Coburn. So I decided to watch Our Man Flint a couple years ago. Hadn't ever seen it. I don't really know, maybe Layla, stop eating everything. She eats everything. It's crazy. She always got to put something in her mouth. It's pretty ridiculous. Anyway, so in Our Man Flint, and I encourage you to watch it, the villain had the technology to manipulate the weather, and then he said, "He who controls the weather controls the world." Now, fascinating, right? That was made in like the 60s or something like that. And we actually, and all so-called science fiction, it's only fiction for a matter of time because it comes from a basis of research that they're already developing. That's just the way it is. So here we are. We have what is this girl doing? We have the technology to direct storms, create natural disasters, and literally obliterate mankind if we want to by manipulating the weather. So this has never hit American shores like this, and it hits Florida, very targeted, and goes across the state and does some damage in North Carolina a little bit, but not the state. The devastation that is hit Florida is fascinating because it effectively would accomplish, if I was a tyrannical leader and had a mind to conceive of such a thing, I would say, well, you know what? First of all, we'll hit them and devastate that state. One thing it'll accomplish is it'll turn voters against him because people always got to find somebody to blame. But I'll furthermore go for the the demographic that's already that we already manipulate, black people, people of color, so to speak, and we've been using them for our agenda for a while anyway. So now, well, soon, right after hurricane, we're going to say we're going to prioritize helping communities of color rebuild. Well, that inspired me to. So that's just basically saying, you know what, DeSantis doesn't have you. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant just hypothetical governor. He doesn't have your back, but we do. We're your friends. We're going to prioritize communities of color. So I looked up the demographics of some of these communities. Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda has like one black person who I know. I know the only black person in Punta Gorda. So, hey, this leader's going to have your back, man. Even though I don't think you really had any damage. And but I don't know, because you asked for Powerball tickets during the storm, so it couldn't have been that big of a deal for you. And then, but there's like 2% of the population of Punta Gorda is people of color. So, you know, to make that kind of assertion is not, and even less on Sanibel Island. Fort Myers has a higher percentage, but the reality is it's kind of a hollow promise. It's an empty promise. It sounds bigger and more magnanimous than it actually is. So that's number one. You can go and start to pull his support from under him. Now, I've read that his party is saying that if they were in office, there wouldn't have even been a hurricane. Well, think about that. You're saying that you could control the weather patterns and the natural disasters. You are saying that if you were in office, that's fascinating, isn't that incriminating? I think that's pretty incriminating. You're saying that if you were in office, there would have been no hurricane. So the counter of that is that you are in office at a higher level and there was a hurricane. So are you saying that your party, if your party was ordered, they would have not pulled the trigger on destroying the countless businesses, lives, homes, etc.? We know that they don't have a problem with being ruthless because they're forcing a lot of people to take a poison into their body that I believe has a Benjamin Button effect, which is making people age rapidly, exponentially. So suddenly people in their 50s are dying of quote-unquote natural causes. And now they're pushing on children. And the science is already in that it has a sterilizing effect. So obviously they don't mind. They don't mind holocausting people, right? So what would be the difference really with a natural disaster like a hurricane? So I mean, these are just thoughts. Like I said, it's all hypothetical speculation, you know. But I will say this, you know, for people who want to say, "Oh, party, party, party," that's the whole point. I'm not a party person. I'm talking about the Get Your Groove On party. It's like I was born and raised south side of Chicago. Democratic Party is in my blood because that's what we did. That's who we are. But when I was a child, I thought as a child. I spoke as a child. I acted as a child. But when I became an adult, when I grew up, I put away childish things. So now I don't go straight party, period. I'm not straight one side or the other. For every election, at this point in my life, I look up all the candidates. I look up their voting records. I look up their histories. I don't look at just the propaganda they put out from either side, because all of us did and said some things when we were younger, which we wouldn't do today. So I'm not going to necessarily look at, back in when they was a teenager, they did this. When they were in their 20s, they did that. Even in the 30s, they did this. These are people who we all had some mistakes at some point, the things we may have grown to mature to regret. But I look at people's track records over an arc, a continuum, a pattern. And that's what I pull the lever on and punch them dots on those cards for in these elections. So some will be on one side and some will be on another, depending on if their values line up with my values and if their proposals are in my best interest. And I think that's the grown-up thing to do. But most people are too lazy to do that, and the powers that be know that people are lazy. They're not going to do all that extra research. They're going to want somebody to tell them what to do. Well, I'm going to tell you to think. And I'm not saying that what I'm thinking right now is necessarily true. I'm saying that it has an air of possibility. I mean, just in the hypothetical, I mean, it certainly could happen, especially with these current claims that if we were in office, if we were in office, you wouldn't have had a hurricane. Who can say that? Except people who know they have access to control the weather. So if they know they can control the weather, is it possible that they did? Wow. Wow, now that's some ruthless-ish. That's all I got to say. That's today's reality check. Thank you. I love you. Bye. You want to say bye, Layla? Hey, Layla. Layla's eating, as usual.